Hello, dear lovers of history of ancient Rome. Welcome to the second episode called the King Period. Period of Roman history, of ancient Roman history, is very interesting for a couple of reasons. First, Rome established itself in this period in Latium, which is very important for the future history of Rome and the whole peninsula and the whole three continents, because Rome affect and left a legacy to three continents and very much so in our modern Western civilization and not only. The King's period is interesting that the Roman city was consolidated. That Rome in this period becomes stronger and one of the main powers in the region of Latium. Also, it's interesting in this period that is something typical for Rome. Even though historians have huge debates and division about where they will come from, the Roman kings. The ones who support so-called Etruscaria, the Etruscan people and civilization have a huge impact on the Roman history and Roman also the rulers of Rome were kings from Etruscan origin, and the other group of historians who supports the Romanita, so-called, that everything is originate from Rome and it's not significant the influence of the Etruscans. But no matter if all kings were Etruscans or most of them or they were not. The important in this period of Roman history that the Roman city was consolidated. Very important reforms are made with some of these kings, and also it was given a bit more power to the plebs. And maybe one of the most things that strike me is that actually in the historical tradition of the early and the late republic, the Roman kings are depicted, some of them really as a negative aspects, like the tyrants and very arrogant personas, like especially the last one, Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquinius the Proud. But the interesting fact is that actually even himself, the last king of Rome, will make reforms which actually shrunk the power of or try to shrunk the power of the nobility and give more power to the plebs. And even some of these kings were favorite of the plebs. So it's interesting how history can be written and leave behind and in the minds of the people completely not realistic and not plausible account about, in this case, about the kings of Rome. Anyway, there were 7 kings of Rome. The period starts with these 7 kings of Rome, and the king period with 715 BC, with the first king of Rome, Numa Pompilius. Which also it's doubted if he was from Roman origin. Some point that maybe he was half Corinthian and half Roman, and also in Rome was extremely important to display and prove that the divine is behind you, divine is supporting you, or even having divine, the king has a divine origin. And also the other interesting fact about the period of the Roman kings is that they weren't heretical. Some of them they had sons, but they didn't inherit the power and the throne from their fathers. The first king of Numa Pompilius ruled from 715 to 672 BC. Of course, the first king, before we talk about the rest, was Romulus. Of course, there is debate if he did really exist or not. That is only mythological personage in the foundation of Rome in 753 BC. Of course, Romulus, in this case, even legend or myth, officially he's accepted as the first king of Rome. But then, with the king period of Rome, it starts with Numa Pompilius. How I said he took his power 715 BC and ended up in 672, which in 672 the power was inherited by Tullius Hostilius, and he ruled until 640 BC. And after 640 BC, he was inherited by Arcus Marcius. And Arcus Marcius make reforms that make him a really popular and favorite of the plebs. He ruled until 616 BC, and after him, Tarquinius Priscus was the king of Rome. There is a strong guessing by the historians, who, of course, make them opinion based on the evidence we have, that more likely Tarquinius Priscus was with Etruscan origin. But again, it's not important if the kings of Rome were Romans or not. It's important what they left as a legacy. And their legacy is really great and point the direction of the development of Rome. Not only architecturally, also laws, for example, Severus Tullius built the legendary wall which protect Rome from invaders. So after Tarquinius Priscus, which more likely was from Etruscan origin, come to power Severus Tullius 578 BC, and he ruled until 534 BC, and then he was inherited by the last king of Rome, Tarquinius Superbus, or in English, Tarquinius the Proud. Very interesting fact is that, and fascinating, striking, as I said, is that the most of the accounts which depict some of the kings as really bad guys, as tyrants, as guys that were full of themselves, that they were arrogant and very egoistic personas, actually as the kings that actually make reforms to give more power to the plebs and deprive the aristocracy for this absolute power they had. But the later historian in the early Republic and the late Republic, they really depict these kings really badly and not accordingly for what we know about them. Especially Tarquinius the Superbus, who was deposed by the aristocracy, but actually he was loved by the plebs. And he tried to deprive the aristocracy of that full power they had. This period also is interesting that since the beginning of Rome, Romulus and Remus, always the kings had to prove that they are supported by the divine, by a goddess or a god. Some of them even claim that the mother or the father were semi-divine or divine, which can establish them power and prove to the public in Rome that they're actually appointed by the supernatural to rule Rome. And that was very important and will carry on for many centuries to come, even to Julius Caesar, who claimed later that his family is originally the mother is Venus. So all the kings tried to prove in that way that the divine is behind them, or they carrying themselves divine genes, if you can call it. And this period, it's divine, about the opinion about this period and the kings is divine, divided between two groups of historians. The ones who support the huge influence of the Etruscans, and also that a lot of kings or most of them they were from Etruscan origin, which they support. They call it Etruscaria. And the other hand is the historians which go against that opinion, and they support so-called Romanita, that most of the things in Rome are originally Roman, most of the kings or all they were from Rome, which to me it's not important. It's important what legacy these kings left. They point the way Rome to develop and become greater later, even though the king period ends in 509 BC and it starts the early Roman Republic. But they are the founders of the foundation, not only creating laws, built a magnificent building, and Servilius Tullius built the famous wall which protects Rome from invaders. But they left some legacy that was the foundation of the future greatness of Rome. So if they were or not Etruscan, yeah, we can say that a lot of evidence pointed that way, that some of the kings, they might have been from Etruscan origin, but more likely they were born in Rome. Rome was a cosmopolitan city, as it was found by runaways, slaves, and even criminals who run from the law. Rome is multicultural from the beginning, and that's would be plausible to say that it continues in the King's period. In King's period, the kings, it's more likely that some of them they weren't originated from Rome, or if they were born in Rome, they weren't Romans. Etruscan, how we said about Numa Pompilius that his father more likely was Corinthian. But again, this is something amazing in Rome, that no matter where you're from, or where is originally you're from, and your parents, you could rise to the power. You can leave your marks on the history of Rome. You can leave something on the foundation of Rome, which will be developed in the future. So people from everywhere, including Greeks, Etruscans, Volsci, and so on, with them ability to build army, to build buildings, to introduce laws, they all make Rome great. And that's what is, even I said in the first episode, that was is amazing about Rome. In Rome, doesn't matter who it was, that the fact is that doesn't matter where you're from. You could become a Roman and you could leave your mark on history of Rome. And so after leaving marks in Rome, you leave marks for eternity. Because Rome, even today, as the Roman Empire, it's a long time not existing, Rome, it's still alive, with the language, with the laws, or the many languages come from Latin, the laws which are used in many countries. So this amazing, unique thing about Rome, which starts from the beginning, continuing the King's period. Everybody, outsiders, people with not originated from Rome, help Rome to become greater. And unfortunately, sometimes about talking about the King's period, unfortunately, sometimes there is not very accurate accounts left about them, because then political opponents, or because the aristocracy didn't like to be ruled by kings. They want the whole power for themselves, because we will talk later in the next episode about the early republic. In the end of the day, the power was in the Senate hands, and the two consuls were chosen from the Senate, small aristocratical circle. So that's why they depict some of these kings terribly. So because they were afraid to lose the power, and they want to hold it for themselves, even though every year the consul were elected. But again, the consul were coming from small group of nobles and aristocrats. Um, so when you look at back to the Roman kings, we have to pay respect and give them credit, because Rome wouldn't be what it was without them deeds. I want to say goodbye for now, and next episodes will be about the early Roman Republic and how was the Republic established. Please subscribe, and if I hope you enjoy the little lessons about ancient Rome.